Hi there guys. Let's have a look at this Norinco JW-20. Now, as you might recognize, this is a copy of the classic Browning Takedown 22 semi-auto design. You can purchase the original Browning still if you're willing to spend the money that you'll have to spend to get one. In Canada, I think the original Brownings are going for something like $700. And these Norinco copies are selling for $169, so quite a bit better deal. This is an all-steel rifle with wood stocks, which is something of a departure from most of what you'll see on the market today. A lot of aluminum and plastic and alloys in a lot of the rifles that are on the market. So all in all, it's not a perfectly manufactured rifle, but it's not too bad all considered, especially for the price. As you can see, it's got a blued finish on the receiver and on all the metal parts actually. And we've got some varnish on the stocks here. Some panels of cut checkering, which are actually fairly well done, with the exception of some damage. It came with a dent in the checkering right there. And there's also a chip out of the stock right there, and some small dents, and there's some other scuffs and so forth on the rifle. Even though it was brand new, it apparently got manhandled a bit at some point in time before it made its way to the dealer. Give you another look at the underside of the fore end. Like I said, reasonably well done checkering on that. The checkering wraps around to the other side, of course. We've got our other panel of checkering on this side, and it doesn't appear to have any dents in it like the other side does. And the butt plate is steel, and it's got a cutout in it there for the magazine tube to come out. Receiver has a little bit of scroll work on it to kind of ornament it a bit. We've got our charging handle down below here. Our bolt reciprocates back and forth, of course, when fired. Safety catch, and that can be flipped over for left-handed or right-handed users as you see fit. Of course, our trigger mechanism here. Serial number resides underneath that patch right there. We'll flip the rifle around, give you a look at the markings on the barrel. JW-20 caliber 22 long rifle, made in China. This serrated collar here adjusts the tightness of the barrel to the receiver. Because this is a takedown, there can be a little bit of play, and you can use that to adjust away some of that play. Have a look at the muzzle here. This actually has a threaded muzzle, which makes me think that this might have been intended originally for perhaps a Australian market, or New Zealand, British market, German, somewhere like that, because we can't have suppressors here in Canada, but these made their way to Canada nonetheless. We've got a front sight with a little brass bead on it there. That is drift adjustable, that front sight. And the rear sight is somewhat windage and elevation adjustable. I don't really care for the rear sight myself. I find it a bit too fine, and to get it zeroed it has to be almost at the bottom of the notch, which makes it really hard to get your head down low enough on the stock. You can see there are two holes here for a scope mount, and I think I'm going to actually resort to putting a scope on this because I find the sights are really kind of hard to use. As I mentioned, this is a takedown rifle, and it takes down quite easily. If we turn the rifle over to the bottom, you'll see that there's a catch here, and you can push this catch to the front, and that's the takedown position. Then you have to pull the bolt back at least a little bit, maybe a quarter inch or so, and that's to get the extractor disengaged from the breech face so that you don't break the extractor. And simply turn the barrel over, pull it straight ahead, and as easily as that, you have taken the rifle down into two very handy pieces. And in its taken down state, it is These are pretty compact little package. So let's have a look at that with it disassembled. Quite small and would be easy to pack away for storage or for transport. I'll give you a little look at the barrel dismounted. You can see we've got basically an interrupted thread here. We've got threads on both sides of the barrel, and they've been milled away on the top and the bottom, so that allows us to insert that into the receiver of the gun and lock it up. A recess here for the cartridges to fit into, and this little scarfed out piece of the wood here, that is to accommodate this little tab right here. So looking in from the front, you can see the breech face. The bolt rides back and forth, of course. Being semi-auto, it's blown back. And the magazine is actually on the top of the receiver, and the cartridges feed out this slot here, so they come down into the top of the bolt and are basically held in that little groove. So they get shoved down from the top into the breech face and then shoved into the barrel, or into the breech. Have a look at the back of the rifle here, and this is the magazine tube, and you can remove it by turning it partially and pulling it to the rear, and it won't come out completely unless you give it quite a pull. It's sort of semi-captive at this point in time, and with it pulled to the back like that, cartridges can be dropped into the magazine there, and it holds 11 22 long rifle cartridges. And once it's full, you simply shove the tube back in and then give it a turn to lock it in place, like that. So we'll put it back together again. So simply pull the bolt back a little bit to keep the extractor out of the way. Insert the barrel, turn it, and let the bolt go ahead then, and then snap the catch back, and the rifle is now ready to go. So let's go through the loading procedure again, this time with live ammo. We've got our magazine tube in the buttstock here. Give it about a 1/8 of a turn or 1/4 of a turn, and then pull it out to the rear. We've got our loading port here. You have to point the rifle down at a fairly steep angle to make sure the cartridges fall all the way in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. Excuse my counting, but sometimes I mess that up if I don't do that. So, to put the magazine tube back in, simply shove it in. You may find it necessary to wiggle it around a bit to get it past the cartridges as you get the spring compressed. And you gotta get it all the way down until it's flush with the stock, like that. Give it a turn, and with it flush with the stock like that and upright, it's locked in place. And simply pull back the charging handle and let it go to load. So we'll see if we can get some light in there. Hopefully you can see the cartridge sitting inside there, and that'll be fed into the barrel as the bolt goes ahead. That's our safety off, and that's safety catch on. So let's do some shooting with this thing. Let's talk a little bit about reliability with these Norinco 22 rifles. I had heard mixed reviews about these before I purchased one, so I took a little bit of a chance and decided to discover for myself whether they worked or not. And when I got the rifle, it had an awful lot of kind of preservative oil on it, and I don't think they would work very well unless you cleaned all that off. I disassembled the rifle fairly far, cleaned all that preservative oil off it, and then lubed it with brake free. And basically it's been working excellently right from the get-go after that. So I've run probably 600 rounds through it so far. The bulk of that would be CCI Blazer, but I've also put some Winchester 333 pack and some Remington Thunderbolts through it. I think I've only had one misfire in all those rounds, and that was with the Thunderbolts, which are not known for being the most reliable 22 ammunition on the market. So as far as the reliability of this particular example, it's been really good. I can't really speak a whole lot to accuracy yet because I really do have trouble with these small sights. I find them very hard to use. However, I have picked up a scope mount to go with this rifle, a Weaver scope mount. Those can be had for about $15 to $20, and it's going to involve removing the rear sight and mounting a scope on the barrel. So I'm going to wait till I've got a scope on this before I kind of give you the verdict on accuracy, although it seems to be reasonably good so far. But perhaps after I've got a scope mounted, I will test a few different varieties of ammunition and see how accurate this is. Anyway, I think that's enough for this video, and we will talk to you later. Thanks for watching.